Good morning. I'm Stephanie Mandeville, Communications Director for NEA Rhode Island. Today is Tuesday morning, March 23rd, 2021, and I am joined, as I always am, by Larry Pirtle and Bob Walsh. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Steph. Good morning, Larry.
Morning, Bob.
So guys, we don't have to really talk about it, but I thought it important to at least acknowledge the fact that we have had the second mass shooting in a week, this time in Boulder, Colorado, 10 people dead. And, to quote the repeated satirical headline from The Onion, "No way to prevent this," says the only nation where this regularly happens. This is a tragedy yet again, and we need to do something about it. I can at least say that here in Rhode Island, a package of 18 gun bills was introduced in the House, I believe by Justine Caldwell and Katie Kazarian, some of them. And included in those is a banning of assault rifles and high capacity magazines and banning guns on school grounds except for law enforcement. We have supported those bills when they've come up in the past, and I believe we support them again this go round.
Yes, we absolutely support them again. I am fortunate that Representative Justine Caldwell is my state representative down here in East Greenwich. And she takes a lot of abuse on the internet for being so out front on this really important issue. And of course, Katie Kazarian, who's now the majority whip in the House, third in the leadership ranks, has been a long-term friend of our organization. Used to read to the kids when we were able to do that in public on Read Across America Day. And both these women have been very, and as well as all the other sponsors and supporters of this legislation in both chambers, have been very courageous, because the opposition is vocal, but they are not in the majority. The majority of Rhode Islanders and Americans believe that responsible gun control, especially getting guns out of the schools, is a very important place to start.
Yes, so unfortunately, a sad beginning, but I thought important to mention. Let's move forward, and I want to start by saying, Larry, you presided last night over our Executive Committee and Delegate Assembly, which we held for the month of March, with over 100 members in virtual attendance, which is fantastic. There were two unanimous motions taken, and maybe we can just kind of go through those. The first one being, Larry, maybe you can speak to this, and Bob, maybe you can speak to the other. Unanimous vote officially taken to formally ask that RIDE push RICAS testing to the fall. It was unanimous. Larry, if you want to speak to that a bit.
Sure, and we've talked about it previously about testing, that right now it doesn't serve any purpose. We know what the test results are going to be. We know that there are students whose parents are going to opt out of them taking the test. We know that there are between close to 5,000 students who we can't find. We have no record of for this year. We know there are upwards to 20,000 students who are chronically absent across the state of Rhode Island. Students who have been learning virtually all year and now are going to come in and take the test. So the test is not valid. And the people who are saying, we need a data point to begin with, well, we'd be much better off getting through this year, getting into the fall, and setting the data point going forward. The government, the Department of Education, is allowing states to do that. They need to ask for a waiver to push off to the fall. Several states have done it. And we think it just makes sense. Testing is coming up very shortly in Rhode Island. So why spend 2 or 3 weeks testing students? We know when the outcome is going to be, when we could be, students could be learning during that time. Teachers and staff could be providing instruction during that time. Some schools, prepare for the test, so that takes more time. So it's just taking us instruction at time away from students who really need it. We've done a terrific job this past year, but certainly taking 2 to 3 weeks out to prepare and to take testing is not going to help. So we're formally asking, I know the AFT is as well, asking for the test to be put off until the fall, which the Department of Ed is allowing. So let's do this. It makes educational sense. So RIDE seems to be, they continue to argue, we need a data point. We need to know where kids are. We know where kids are. Teachers and staff in the buildings know where they are. So let's not spend 2 or 3 weeks of wasted time.
Agreed. The other vote that was taken, Bob, was a unanimous vote to publicly support and stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the Providence Teachers Union, who are going through an awful lot right now. We had Frank Flynn as our guest last night to kind of give us an update on what is going on, and then took a vote of support, and that was unanimous. Bob, if you can just kind of give us a little summary overview of what Frank talked about.
Sure, thank you. Things are not going well in Providence at all. They're in negotiations now. About a year and a half ago, the mayor threw the keys on the table, and the state is theoretically running the Providence public school system. Unfortunately, the state has the State Department of Education has little or no experience in public sector collective bargaining in the state of Rhode Island. So having the commissioner at the table has proven to be a detriment to getting good educational outcomes. And the new superintendent there, who seems to be following the direction of the commissioner, is unfortunately out of his depth as well. And more or less, that is why there was an overwhelming vote of no confidence by the Providence teachers in the management of the Providence public schools. There were several reasons we understand that this took place, but the primary one that our members will appreciate is comments made by the commissioner and superintendent suggesting that the teachers support them. It's that union that doesn't. Well, we all know in this business that the members are the union, the teachers are the union, the education support professionals are the union, the faculty of the union, and so on. So I think if nothing else, this illustrates that there is not only no confidence in the management side, there is great confidence from the members to their elected leadership. And our unanimous vote last night from our delegate assembly shows that we are in support of their efforts as well. We've seen these shenanigans in Providence before. Then Mayor Angel Tavares blew up his prospects of any political success by unapologetically firing all the teachers. Now he makes his trade by suing us whenever there's legislation that he doesn't like. So I guess there's a second act for everybody in Rhode Island. And it is unfortunate that things are going the way they're going in Providence, but we will do whatever we can to assist them. I think there's a press conference as we're taping this where they're explaining the greater rationale for the vote and the next steps. So we do know that former Supreme Court Justice Frank Flaherty has been named as a mediator for the negotiations part of things. I think that's a very good sign. And again, following that broken playbook that a prior mayor used, they laid off entirely too many teachers last week in the city of Providence, which most folks
270, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a threat.
Yeah.
Either it was maybe well over 200, but either way, it was well beyond what they would have needed for economic reasons, and it was clearly yet another political game in our very, very important city at a time where education is so crucial.
And the commissioner and the superintendent there just doubled down on those comments that Bob referred to again last night, saying, we're ready to work with the teachers who are willing to work with us. But as you'll see in the press conference today, the numbers say that with the union, because the teachers are the union. 1,920 members in Providence, over 1,600 voted with a 99% voting in favor of the motion. No confidence. So I think the commissioner and the superintendent better start, instead of looking at high-paid consultants and experts who have done nothing but waste money, they better start looking and talking to the people who are actually delivering the educational services.
Right. The inability to apologize for a massive mistake brings down a lot of people. The commissioner and the superintendent need to apologize for their prior comments and try and get things back on track. I mean, people make mistakes, but what they do after that is how we judge them.
So I would say late last week into the weekend, the three of us had a series of conversations about kind of the state of education, the state of public education here in Rhode Island, and trying to call attention to many of the things that NERI sees as urgent. So we have this sort of sense of urgency over a number of things. And so the two of you signed a letter that was sent to Governor McKee. What I'm going to do is sort of tick down the highlights of the letter, and then you guys can kind of go back and forth and talk about the urgency of each, really. So first off, we did thank Governor McKee for prioritizing pre-K to 12 educators, ESP, and staff in the vaccination process. At the last COVID briefing, we learned that 80% of educators K to 12 were either vaccinated or scheduled to be vaccinated, which was big and new news for us at that point. We touched upon the change from CDC on physical distancing from 6 feet to 3 feet. We talked about the very urgent need for addressing pandemic-related learning disruption. We discussed, and Larry, you touched upon this just a few moments ago, the thousands of students who are essentially lost. And we'll talk about that in a bit. RICAS we talked about, and how RIDE has had missed this opportunity to sort of move these over to the fall. We thanked him for his commitment to Rhode Island Promise and asked that we continue these conversations about how to safely reopen campuses across the state. We urged him to not veto the bill should it pass the House with regard to charter school expansion, and we'll go into that. We finished with mental health, which is always this undercurrent of everything we talk about, and it's I would say it's reached crisis level. It was kind of there before the pandemic, and at this point, it's not just students that we're talking about here. So we did talk about mental health and well-being, and then closed by looking forward to working together on the things we find common ground on. So, Larry, if you want to take one of those, or to kick us off, we can kind of talk through a few of them.
Take one and try not to ramble on about all the others. But the mental health, we continue to, that's such a priority for us. And certainly, and one of the concerns I frankly had with Gina Raimondo leaving as governor was we worked with her and her staff over the past couple of years. She certainly pushed more money in her budget and understood the need for mental health professionals and more money going into mental health. Hopefully the new governor will continue that. Certainly coming out of this pandemic, the social, emotional needs of students, our staff, families, everyone. But when we think about going forward for the spring, summer, and fall, those social, emotional needs, there's a sense of urgency there. We have to deal with that before we can start dealing with the educational issues. So when you talk about, up to 5,000 students, those students are going to have mental health concerns and issues and social emotional needs. They haven't been socializing. They haven't been in school. Some of them were supposed to start school for the first time in K, in first grade. And then we have the 20,000 or so who are chronically absent, there are a lot of issues to deal with there. So we have to understand that this is huge. It needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with immediately. And I know we can talk about the urgency in a minute going forward for the summer and fall. But this is urgent and we need to address it.
As far as the mental health, we did, I think it was last week's or the last Ask Larry and Bob, where we talked about outreach possibilities for mental health, and that we've got the capability to essentially have nearly every Rhode Islander in front of us when we're going to a mass vaccination site, and why not provide mental health resources and to folks at that point. And once we do that, we would actually have a robust plan in place once students become eligible for vaccine. So that the two of you included that in the letter as a possibility to kind of bridge that gap with what we have.
It's just a great idea. And again, having been vaccinated and now got both shots, and it's almost a festive atmosphere getting it because people are excited about getting the shots, and people giving the shots are excited. Also, a time to just hand out a pamphlet or brochure saying if you're struggling or having problems, here's how to reach out, etc. You could have somebody there. I know I got mine through Thunder Mist, and I know they have mental health outreach and everything. So those programs are, already there. We need to take advantage of what's there.
Bob, what do you want to touch on from that list of highlights?
Let me give the big picture of the highlights. Maybe that'll be even more helpful. I was thinking in anticipation of answering this question in the last 2 minutes about our relationship with Governor Raimondo. And I was smiling to myself, remember the time things get so animated in the office that the arm of the chair I was sitting in was broken off because I think I was gripping the arm so tightly as we were making an important point on behalf of our members. But it broke the mood and everyone laughed. As with that, our relationship with Governor McKee and all governors is complicated. We have areas of strong agreement, we have areas of strong disagreement, and we have areas that we will determine how we work together going forward. So folks who are looking for that black and white answer on any of our elected officials, there's always a lot of gray in the mix. And that's important to point out because we are in the context where we're not that far away from an election. And we talked about this at the board last night, saying we haven't made any decisions one way or the other. I would love to see some or any of the contenders for governor speak up on our side on the charter school moratorium bill, which is one of our top legislative priorities this year. It overwhelmingly passed the Senate. It's before the House Finance Committee today, and the jury is still out where it goes. And when we say moratorium, just to describe the bill, it is not only a 3-year moratorium on new charters, it would take the 6 that are currently in the pipeline and put them to the side as well. And that's the bigger source of controversy as you read the coverage of what is assuredly going to be a hearing that starts tonight and ends tomorrow, because it's going to go well past midnight, I believe. Those
it's
are
one of 17 ed bills on the docket, so it is going to be a very long night.
It's and they'll probably do the other 16 first, because this is the one that had hundreds of witnesses signed up for. And as you know, charter schools are a very complicated issue for us. We are not inherently opposed. We thought the first generation of charter schools, where they were supposed to show innovative practices or have very individualized missions that could either supplement existing public schools or teach us things that we could later incorporate into all public schools, at least exploring those opportunities had some amount of sense. Now, in the second and third generation of charters, they've become, sadly, a more corporate function and direct competitors, or a parallel school system in a bad way, where there are a lot of reasons, and we could do a whole show on our objections to this. The governor, as I explained to a reporter on this issue, as Governor Raimondo was to pensions, Governor McKee is to charters. They were both issues very closely associated with them in their prior jobs that they had a lot of influence on, but coincidentally, neither one had a direct vote on. Although Governor McKee now does have a vote. But we have not agreed with any governor on the issue of charters since charters have come into the state of Rhode Island. Governor Ammon, Governor Kucheri, Governor Chafee, Governor Raimondo, and now Governor McKee have been at odds with us. So let that be a little hint to Treasurer Magaziner and Secretary of State Gorbea that if they speak up for this bill, that would score them some points for us, because we are in a political world. That notwithstanding, the relationship with the new McKee administration outside of that issue has been terrific. Regular communications, involvement. Certainly the headline was the vaccine issue, but just in general, in communications and dialogue, it has been a strong relationship, as well it should be. So we're very, so far, happy with how that's going. But it's important to have two-way dialogue. So what the letter does, and we don't have to go through the 10 points of it as much as it's there. We've talked about it. There's a lot of areas as we come out of this pandemic that need to be focused on. Larry mentioned the summer learning loss, which was a focus of that and some outside efforts that we're involved with the Rhode Island Foundation and the Hassenfeld Institute and the superintendents and the School Committee Association, and of course, the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers, all working together to achieve a common goal, not only for programmatic activities for the students this summer, but beyond, because it's going to take a while. Stephanie and Larry mentioned there are students we just don't know where they are. We've got to find over 4,500 students who have been virtually non-existent in the system since the pandemic started. Another maybe 20,000 have attendance so poor that, back to the testing issue, that testing them would be foolish because they haven't been around. And I certainly aren't going to show up for a test if they haven't shown up for school in the first place. So, I urge you all to read the letter because it's a really good summary of what our thinking is, at least as of the past 5 days. Stephanie took our disparate thoughts and turned them into a coherent message.
I do my best.
To do with our,
As she often does.
with our thoughts.
Their next goal is to get it, on a T-shirt, support public schools in Rhode Island, but something catchier than that. But maybe that will come.
Working on it. Working on it. All right. Well, again, folks really just need to read that letter. I think it's, it's worthwhile to kind of get that overall overarching view of what we see as urgent matters with regard to public education in our state. I do want to mention the Neary Children's Fund. The golf tournament is scheduled and moving forward as of right now, July 15th at Richmond Country Club. We are encouraging folks, and I'll have the information in the video, we're encouraging folks to sign up a foursome. And also, if you or someone you know is a business owner and wants to donate a raffle item for after our post tournament activities, that would be hugely helpful. And it's a great group of folks. This is an important one. It's the 30th golf tournament that we've had. And, last year we had to cancel everything. We had to cancel all of the usual fundraising things with including the Gingerbread Express. So we need to come back strong for Neary's Children's Fund. So hopefully folks will come out for that.
Yeah, and the segue off of that, besides supporting the very important Children's Fund and the wonder of a 30th anniversary of such an important activity. We got a question yesterday from CCRI faculty. Some members are upset that they announced that's 70% of kids are expected or encouraged to return in September, and wanted our comment on that. Our comment is, okay, maybe that will happen. Maybe it'll be 100%. Maybe it'll be 0%. I mean, what's the expression about man plans and God laughs? I'm hoping it'll be 100%. I'm hoping that not only will all the adults be vaccinated, all the students will be vaccinated as well. And we go from there. But I cannot comment on what we think is going to happen. I can tell you what we hope is going to happen. And our answer on that question will be the same as it has been for the last year on all questions. Health and safety first, guided by science and medicine. But if with a lot of hope thrown in, and that's really the answer to that question, and all questions related to what's going to happen this summer and fall.
Yeah. So also I want to mention that we have started a Facebook group for our early career educators. And I, again, will put that information in the video, and we'll be posting ECE specific workshops and events that are happening for our early career educators. And also on March 31st, we have another installment of Wellness Wednesdays. This one is self-care through mindfulness. March 31st, and it's led by member Christy Surrett, who is a school social worker in South Kingstown, not easy to say, for 18 years. She's a certified Kripalu yoga instructor, as well as a certified mindfulness and meditation teacher. If you've ever met Christy, she is a wonderful person. I met her at our second mental health summit that we had, and she is fantastic. So we'll have information for that as well. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
Once again, thanking everyone for everything they're doing. There's a better end in sight. If you haven't gotten vaccinated and you're eligible, please sign up. And when you become eligible, if you're not yet eligible, please sign up. They say by April 19th, everyone in Rhode Island will be, all adults will be eligible to sign up. So please strongly consider taking advantage of the opportunity to get vaccinated.
I know there were several thousand more spots opened up at the statewide centers. And there are other places people can go to, CVS, Walgreens, Stop and Shop, for example. Karen, my wife, is going to Stop and Shop this week in Providence. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for to sign up. And again, 80% of our members, either the first shot or are signed up. So that's all good news. And as we said last week, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train. So we're getting there.
We are getting there. Thank you, as always, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Thanks.
you.